The Diesel Performance podcast contains explicit language.
Thank you for joining us. This is Paul Wilson.
And this is Chris Emke.
You're listening to the Diesel Performance podcast.
What a week.
What a week it has been.
What a fucking week.
Chris and I have been killing it over at Duramax Tuner Calibrated Power. Busy week.
Yeah,
busy week. A lot of stuff going on. Tuning's been big. Ford tuning's been big.
You want to know what the biggest week for this week has been for me?
What?
Podcast listeners calling in, asking questions, gaining knowledge.
This is totally 100% true.
You know what, guys? Keep it coming. I love it. Message us on Facebook if you'd like. Shoot us emails. Give us calls. That's fine. Honestly, keep it coming.
Chris is now officially handling Facebook contacts, so if you shoot us a message, you will get a reply back from Chris Emke. At some point.
I am getting better, guys. I'm working it into my daily regimen.
Yeah. Speaking of Facebook, I actually had Adam Shastrom.
Adam.
Give me a call the other day because he's a podcast listener.
Badass. I love those.
Actually, what was really cool is Adam told me that he had a plan for building his truck. Okay. And then after listening to all of our episodes, he totally threw that plan out the window and decided he was going to do it a different way.
Shut up.
No, I swear to God. Like,
what kind of truck? What are we playing with here?
Oh, we got a cum dog.
Okay, that's
we
my
got
shit.
a cum dog. All right. It's a 5.9. It's actually, it's like really close to your old truck.
Okay.
Except I know it's not a regular cab.
Oh.
All right. The one thing him and I talked about, and Adam, we're going to bring you up again in our From Facebook. But for right now, what I wanted to hone in on is he had built his transmission before listening to the podcast.
Okay.
And everybody told him you got to build your transmission. Right. So he's got a 48. It's constantly failing. He's blowing it up. It's all the usual bullshit. Yeah. It's a slush box, whatever, right?
Pre-2010 problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
He builds it, and it basically becomes a giant sledgehammer under his ass.
Nice.
Right? And he had no idea that this was going to... He's like, oh, I'll build it, and then this thing will be great for towing.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I'll build it, and then this thing will fucking suck to drive.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that, Chris. Why does that happen? And what can people do to avoid that?
I mean, 47s and 48s are a little bit of a different demographic compared to the other transmissions.
Right. Can you have a smooth shifting...
Yeah. I mean,
built 48?
I mean, you got to understand characteristics of the transmissions. They are very quick, snappy, shifting transmissions. Depending on the valve body that you go with, there's some trans builders that do more of like a quote-unquote towing valve body versus like a high pressure or even like, in my experience, constant pressures, which we'll dive into here in a couple. But that's going to play a big role. The converter, these are all big key aspects. When I had my constant pressure, now that was in a two-wheel drive regular cab.
Yeah.
That thing shifted, you fucking felt it. Like the back end would move around like that. That truck, it was rowdy to say the least.
Okay. How come, I'm trying to phrase this correctly. All right. Great reliability, but sucks to drive, depending on how you set it up. And a lot of that you said has to do with kind of the valve body and how that is set.
Yeah, I mean...
And then what converter you run with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we do our stuff over at the shop, even me beforehand, I've always dealt with Garand for like the torque converters. Mm-hmm. Our rebuild kits, we've used a couple other vendors, trying different things, seeing what works. I think we have a secret sauce, a good recipe now for building transmissions for our customers.
Right.
But 48s, 47s and 48s, to anyone who has a built trans, if you're looking for a driver, probably buy a Ford or a Duramax. If you're looking for a hopped-up truck and you want it to go fast, then, on the cheap, I think that dealing with a 48 or a 47 build goes a long way.
I just want to pull this little segment out that Adam sent me. Hard shifts, rough ride, loud drone, # Dodge problems.
That is Cummins in a nutshell. Like, me and Nick were talking about this the other day, and, if you want to build power on a budget, I don't think anyone in the diesel industry can deny that, the 5.9 is a good platform to work off of.
Sure.
Once you get out of your late teens, early 20s like myself, and, I'm going to be eclipsing 28 soon, the nice 6.7 Power Stroke, 6.6 Duramax LMLs, you have a much appreciated you appreciate it more.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like when they used to build trucks, it was to be a truck, and like it was understanding that demographic didn't care about hard shifts and
Dodge still
banging around and bouncing around.
Still hasn't figured that shit out. You know? Like,
now guys are starting to try to be like, hey, you also would like to be comfortable, or you probably also own a car. This isn't your only vehicle. Maybe you want your truck to drive as nice as your car does, and like the newer vehicles, that's possible.
And Fords, man, that's a home run. Like, you get into a newer Ford, like, I don't want to give it back. Like, I kind of want to buy one.
You're almost blushing right now.
I am,
You
because I
kind of have
them.
a crush on the new Fords.
I do, man. I don't care if it's an 11, 12, 15, 16, even the 17s I like. They drive so fucking nice.
Yeah.
They do. I never, ever thought I would say that.
I'm like so instinctually wanting to make fun of you for saying something good about Ford, but it's really hard. To be honest, the new 6.7s are good. And actually, that's what today's episode is about. In a few minutes here, we're going to be talking about the transmissions and the 6R140, and we have an expert on today to dive into that with us. Real quick, though, I do want to give a shout out. Obviously, if you're looking for pretty much anything for your truck, whether it is a Ford, a Duramax, or a Cummins, of course, you could check out Alligator Performance.
Yeah. They one-stop shop, right?
Absolutely. Extremely knowledgeable staff, a very helpful group of guys who are going to be able to listen to what your problems are and help you find a real solution, not just cram parts into the shopping cart.
What's really cool with them is, like for our niche market, we're in a specialized, we Duramax, Cummins, common rail fuel systems. You have a 12-valve, 24-valve, common rail, Cummins, 7.3, Huey injection system, 6 liters, and then the newer 6.4s, 6.7s. You can go there.
Absolutely.
Chevys, I don't know if they get into the 6.5s and the 6.2s much. So sorry, guys.
I don't know if there's a lot of them to get into out there anymore. I know my 6.5 spent more time on the rack than the road, but I'm sure somebody else out there will still tell you that they're reliable and have enough power.
Yeah, they have a few less brain cells in them.
Once we get up into the newer trucks, though, we're always talking about common rail injection. Of course, for all of your common rail injection needs, you're going to talk to Exergy.
Exergy Performance.
Exergy is sponsoring a new segment with our show, Do's and Don'ts from Exergy.
What do you do, Paul?
I have a great do for you, and that is do regular
do
regular maintenance with your fuel filters.
Regularly.
Right, yes. Having a hard time phrasing that one, guys. Bear with me. It's Friday.
Radio Rich is just staring at you laughing.
So yeah, do regularly go through and do maintenance with your fuel filters. This is one of those key components that I think guys easily overlook. I know we get a lot of questions at work, Chris, about like how often should I change my fuel filter?
Right. You want to know the other question I get a lot? I bought a modified pump and I want to modify it.
Yes.
I go and I say, what the fuck are you talking about? So what does Exergy talk about when they, what do you want to do there?
Don't modify your modified pump.
Because
actually, just to be honest, don't modify any Exergy pump. Even if it's a Sportsman, do not put a bag of parts in it. It will void your warranty.
And they kind of modify the pump per your request for what you want to do. You call them or you call us and you say, this is what I want to do with the truck. We're going to spec out the proper pump.
Right.
It's a turnkey thing. You drop it in and just go.
That's it.
Don't fuck with it.
That's it. And for all of you guys with modified injector trucks who have been buying parts from Alligator Performance, you don't want to miss out on a set of traction bars.
Boom.
WC Fab.
Mic drop.
They don't.
Can I drop this?
Nobody does it better. Nobody. Yeah. No. I like that. Nobody does it better.
No one's going to do a better job than Jason and the crew over at WC Fab when it comes to pretty much anything fabricated wise, in my opinion. But their traction bars are bar none one of the best out there.
Absolutely correct. TIG welded, grade 8 hardware. Johnny Joints,
lifetime warranty. Name another shop out there that's going to warranty a product for life.
Yeah.
Come on. And they have, thousands of powder coating colors to choose from. You can get into a brand new Ford Platy, right? Ooh. Maroon. You can get color-matched maroon traction bars. Call it a day. Guys, I like black leather. I'm just saying, I think I'm onto something here. I think I'm going to sell a race car.
Yeah. And go with a maroon platinum Ford with maroon traction bars.
Maroon or white, man. Those are the colors.
At any rate, definitely, guys, check out Exergy, Alligator, WC Fab, sponsors of Diesel Performance Podcast, and thank you so much to them. Yep. For today, finally, we get our goddamn expert on the phone.
And hold on, there's a request here.
Do it.
Lee Stilts wanted me to introduce him as the Morgan Primm.
Ooh, that's a big shout out. How the hell's it going, Morgan?
How you guys doing today?
We're doing great, man. We're doing great. Morgan, we brought you on because I started digging around. We wanted to do an episode around the 6R140. Obviously, we work with you guys over there at Midwest. But I started to reach out to my guys that I know to be big in the trans world, and two different people said, hey, you know what? I mess around with a lot of transmissions, but that 6R140, you should probably talk to Morgan Primm. He's the guy who knows the most.
And we do business with you, and we didn't think to contact you first, so you came highly recommended.
Why, thanks for the thoughtfulness.
Oh, sorry, man. Hey, you know what? We're rookies, all right? We're learning from our mistakes. It won't happen again.
That's it. Okay, Morgan, give us a quick intro, man. What is your background in diesel performance?
Well, I started out, just like everyone, with a diesel truck. I worked for Caterpillar, built engines, dynoed engines, did a little bit of everything for Cat Defense, several different things there. And, of course, on the side, diesels, performance, horsepower, everything like that was what interested me and took me to where I'm at now. But, I've always kind of been a Ford guy at heart. I know that's, hard for some people to admit, but I'm a Ford guy, so with that curse, I've been trying to figure out how to make Fords better than the Dodges and GMs for a long time. It's an uphill battle, but we're doing all right at it.
I dig it. Well, you guys finally got a platform to work from now that you can compete with. To be honest with you, all of our testing here, I've been very impressed with these new transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the 6.7 platform in general.
They are extremely stout in factory form.
So give us a little breakdown. What goes into a stock 6R140? Why is it so stout?
So when Ford built the 6R140, they originally built this as a multi-purpose transmission. They currently use it in everything from the F-250s all the way to the F-750s.
Whoa.
So realistically, it shares more of a medium-duty lineage there to handle, they actually literally put these in trucks and delivery trucks and semis, single-axle semis that, haul trailers, 60, 70,000 pounds down the interstate. So it's a pretty cool platform. They built it with the ability to go much further than just a pickup truck transmission when they did so.
Now, the platform itself, from the F-250 up through a F-750, you said, the torque converter, the internal shafts, clutch packs, all that all shares the same similarities across the board?
Very similar. Okay. We do know that there are some differences in between the gas 6R140s, the pickup truck diesel 6R140s, and the F650, 750, the commercial 6R140s. There are some differences. Clutch pack counts, actually the planetary counts, some of that stuff is changed between the two, and we do use some different parts from different things depending on the build and what it's used for. Okay. We could actually spec it with, for instance, a F650, 750 planetary set that actually goes from the gas is a 3-pinion, the diesel pickup truck is a 4-pinion, and then we go up to 6-pinion. Okay. So there's all kinds of cool things there. Now, as well.
Now, as far as, we'll be more specific to the pickup trucks, I guess, because that's what the majority of the listeners and what I'm sure you deal with and what we're going to be dealing with. Mm-hmm. Walk us through the 2011 to the 2017s. Are there a lot of differences? Are there some similarities? Like, what's the breakdown there?
So as we build them all the same, okay, regardless of what core we get them in. The 11 through 14s are basically the same with zero differences. They did change the torque converter from the 11s and early 12s to the mid-year 12s all the way on up. They went from an 8-volt torque converter to a 6-volt, and they changed a little bit internally because they had some shuttering issues with the early ones under heavy load. They would kind of almost shudder, so they loosened them up. And then 15 and newer, the torque converter is even looser for the GT37 versus the GT32 turbo. Right. They gave it a little more stall. internally, the 15 and 16s, since Ford was having such an awesome track record and no warranty claims, they decided it was a good idea to make them a little cheaper and take some clutch counts out of them. And while that probably saved them, a fair amount of money, it does lower the amount of abuse they will take in the 15 and newer transmissions.
Really?
That's crazy.
Yes.
So no, go on.
ahead.
No, continue. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, the 11 to 14s. I mean, we've seen those things. I have literally tuned some trucks with stock transmissions, crew cab short beds in the 11s. Believe it or not,
Shit.
it's unreal.
That was going to be my next question is, what kind of power are these transmissions like in factory form? I mean, we're talking 11s and 12s. You're probably talking some 150,000 mile trucks. You get into the newer trucks, less mileage, of course. But what kind of power, and again, it's a stock form, but on average, are you expecting to see harness through the trans?
Well, in general, we all know there's lots of things that can lead to the failure of the transmission,
Right.
tuning, abuse, how you drive it, how you maintain it. But in general terms, we've seen the 11 through 14s be very, very reliable up to and around 6 to 650.
That's crazy.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, the LMLs,
And-
the Allison 1000, we'll see them hold 600, but we always tell guys it's not going to be for long, right? Like, you're going to end up eating up a converter at some point.
Right.
But you're saying that these things, and this is what I keep hearing about them, is that they can just take all of this power and they're staying together. When they do fail in the 11 to 14s in their stock form, what's most likely to go out first?
The smallest clutch in the transmission is what they call the E-clutch. There's all kinds of different technical descriptions, but we generally call it the E-clutch. That is the engaged clutch in the 3/4 shift and the hold clutch for the 5/6. So when it does that transfers, from third to fourth gear, you release your forward clutch. It engages that, what they call the E-clutch or the overdrive clutch. That clutch there is the smallest in diameter and the highest count in factory form. It's similar to the small clutch in the Allison. I can't remember which C clutch that was.
The C3.
But we're talking a count of 7 frictions on average, just in that one clutch pack, when we're normally at 5 to 6 on all the rest of them. So it takes the most abuse. It's the smallest, and it transfers the most horsepower in the high gears. So it's usually the one to go first.
Okay. Now, how about the 15, 16s? What do you see failure points there?
So they took the 2 of the biggest clutches, diameter clutches, surface area wise, which would be the intermediate and the direct clutches. And they went ahead and did some intermediate and the forward clutch. Direct is also the same size, but they left it the same factory clutch count. They took forward and intermediate from a 6 count, or they took one clutch count out. Now, depending on what year and if it's a gas line, they are all different. But 15 and newers, they took one clutch out of the direct and one clutch forward and intermediate. Sorry, I keep getting those confused. The direct is the same. Forward and intermediate clutches, they removed one count from each one of those. Now, they all share, direct, forward, and intermediate are all similar size. But what we see on the 15 and 16s when they come in, most of the time we will see that intermediate or forward slipped because it has a lower clutch count, and the holding capacity is just not there.
Okay.
So that then goes from the 11 to 14s. Most customers complain of a flare on the 3/4 shift because that is your weakest point. Now we'll get a 4/5 flare, or a lot of times a 2/3, because it's a different clutch pack. Most generally the intermediate that's taking the abuse, and it has the least holding capacity in the transmission on the 15 and newers.
When you're seeing the flares or when you're getting the complaints about them tying up and things like that, and you're starting to get the problems, and you're bringing these cores in and you're inspecting them, is it burning up the clutches? Like, are you getting?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? It is smoking them out.
Oh yeah, and so honestly, it's pretty amazing because they actually have the ability, and we see these transmissions come in with literally a whole stack of steels in there because there is no friction material left on them.
Oh my God.
And it's pretty impressive the fact that they still drive, personally, because I've done it.
Holy shit.
And they will give you a little chirp or a squealing sound on that shift engagement, but then once it engages and grabs, it'll hold. You go pull that transmission out, pull it apart, and there's literally no friction left on there, and for who knows how long it's been doing that. So, I remember in previous model years and other diesels that I've had, we get to the point where the truck just quits moving.
Yeah.
These 6.7s, they still drive. It's crazy. But they just, they start flaring and doing funky stuff and squealing and chirping and squawking, and that's, if you hear that, you're already too late.
Oh, no.
So I guess let's dive into, a customer comes to you, he says he wants to make, let's say, 650, 700 horse. I don't know.
Take it past the stock limit, 700 horsepower.
I'm sure, with us in the Allison stuff, we have 700 capable, we have 1,000 horse capable. We really offer 2 transmissions. So walk us through the different, options that you have in a trans build and what you tend to do for those.
So basically what we have, we're very similar. In my line of thinking, you either have, a basic bolt-on simple truck, or you're going for more than that. And there's really only 2 ways to build the transmission. So we offer what we call our street transmission, which we rate, basically single pump stock injector horsepower levels. So in that 650 range, we upgrade the lower clutch 15 and 16s to the higher clutch counts. We add to the E-clutch on all the street trans, whether it's an 11 to 14 core or 15 and newer core. They all come out with the same clutch count when we're done. Everything's machine and spec'd out the same. We do that, and basically that's, if you have the bolt-on and maybe an upgraded drop-in charger, a small non-VGT, stock fuel, a nice, happy, healthy 650 horse truck, and whether it's a 15 or 16, you already grenaded your trans, or you finally beat on your 11 to 14 trans long enough, it's giving you fits. You're going to be able to put that street trans in, and it's going to live its happy, long 2-year, 100,000-mile warranty, pretty much trouble-free, no issue with the street trans. And then basically we offer, for everybody past that, is what we call our competition 6R140. That transmission has added frictions and steels in every clutch across the whole board, other than your low reverse, because, those aren't really necessary in normal use. So we take and do a lot more extensive machining to all of the drums, the cages, the reaction plates, the pistons. There's a lot more machining in a comp trans to get to that point. And we also spec out our own steels and frictions, and actually buy, our frictions and stuff bulk from Ray Bestis. Everything comes with GPZ frictions, healing steels. It's good quality parts in there, with either the street or the comp just being built to a higher capacity. And the only other option we do offer with that, now with TCS coming out with the new billet intermediate shaft, the one part that we do see break internally in these, and not very often, mind you, we've got trucks in the 10s with 0 billet parts, but we now do offer our comp plus the billet intermediate shaft as well, or we call it a comp 1. But
now that's just
you got to be doing some pretty serious work to need one of those.
Now that's just a billet intermediate, so your input and output are still stock shafts, correct?
Bone stock, and believe me, if I could lay one of these out on a table next to, say, a 5R110, any Allison.
We're not even going to bring up
makes
Dodges.
the internal workings just look tiny.
I love how we were talking about, stock input shafts or, intermediates or whatever. It's always talking about the Ford and the Allison. You never once bring up the Dodge shit because it is so flimsy.
Everybody knows it's garbage. Yeah. There's not even a comparison, bro.
They're really, it's two shafts to one at that point,
Yeah. Okay, so it's...
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
we were actually on one of the forums earlier. We were pointing out the differences between the different 4R, 5R input shafts, the miraging and the air mets and all the exotic materials, and I just had to post in there. I said, and the thing that gets me is we got stock input shafts on 6R140s holding all the same amount of power, and it truly is amazing the difference in the way they're built, the size, the mass, the physical mass of the planetaries, and the gears and shafts and everything inside of these 6R140s is I mean, it's literally in most ways and shapes almost doubles the internal workings of a 5R110. It's pretty impressive for a stock transmission.
What do you think is your guys' like suggested limit for horsepower on the comp, on the 6R140 competition?
And because I like to have fun, I don't put a limit on there, and I say if you break it, and you can break it because of power, not abuse or crappy tuning, I will make it better. Wow. So I've got a couple people that are trying to take me up on that challenge. And right now, I mean, I got a couple different guys, triples, big compounds, and we've done a couple revisions for a few of them. None of them are really mainly for hard parts. It's just trying to get clutch capacity and engagement, quick shift engagement, to hold the power. Nobody's just shredding one of these. Even in that 12, 13, 1,500 horsepower, 2,000 plus foot-pound trucks, it's amazing that they go this far. But we're pretty impressed with it. The biggest limitation we're seeing right now is the E-clutch, just because of the diameter and the physical limitations. We're going to have to get to a point where we can actually make some modified drums oversized so we can get more capacity in there. But for the most part, it's with what we're doing, we have very few people that can actually tackle a comp trans and have to give me a reason to do something different to it.
I mean, it's a home run to want to inquire one of those transmissions when you're like, yeah, I like to have fun too. You break it, and it's because you're making power and having fun with it. We'll work with you. That's everything. Not many companies are like that these days.
Well, I mean, it gives us a reason to do something better.
Absolutely.
And it gives everybody a reason to move forward and push the envelope, and I enjoy that, because if somebody's really truly trying to push this platform and push that far, I want to give them something that they can back it with and not have to swap a 48 in it, for the love of God.
Right.
Well, I guess that brings up a good question, right? Is the 48's always been popular in high horsepower competitions? Yeah, it hits like a sledgehammer, but when you build them, they hold together and they do shift really fast. You're getting down the track without having to go into sixth gear.
Yeah,
you're holding gear in a sled pull. Like there are some benefits to these built 48s.
How does the
6R140 compare in that aspect of like going down the track?
So the cool thing, and it's like in the regular cab that I had when we were playing around with it at the track, we didn't launch in first gear. First gear is way too low. So it was a second gear through transmission. So in all reality, we'd do a 2-3, 3-4, 4-5 shift and done. That 6 gear in a quarter mile was pretty much not needed. Right. In an 1/8 mile, it wasn't needed at all. So there's a point where it's not really so much as a hamper to have 6 gears when you have the ability to use them through tuning selectively via second gear start, and the fact that the top two gears are overdrive. So a single overdrive or a double overdrive, that sixth gear, for the most part, unless you're really running a deep gear at the track, is not necessary.
Right.
You know, a 355 or a 331 truck doesn't need that second overdrive out the back of the drag strip. You know, unless you're pushing some ridiculously high mile per hour, which, you know, we're not seeing yet. So
Yeah. 140 still a cap, huh? Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was the 6.4.
Yeah, that was 6.4.
Not my bad.
I think I know personally, I ran 130 in my regular cab
Wow.
down at Gateway, and that was in a 7,000-pound truck. So
Jesus.
I've got another guy in Texas running one. He's got a little more weight out of his. I know he's getting up there, breaking through the 130s, running mid-10s with his. You know, and he sent it back after 2 years. We pulled it apart just to freshen it. You know, he had no complaints, but he wanted to, before the season starts, he wanted to look it over, and we pulled it apart. Went ahead and updated a few clutches to the different stuff that we're doing now. But other than that, everything looked good. I took some pictures and sent to him, and I said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Oh, God.
Okay. How about any problems in stock form? So if I have a stock trans, you said I could eat up some of these clutches. If I'm starting to think that I'm having these problems, how do I diagnose it? What do I go look at?
So here's what the most common problems with the 6R140. The earlier trucks, the 11 to 12s, had valve body issues. And, of course, you know, you're going to see those issues in the earlier trucks because they now have the most miles in them. You know, you're going to get a truck with 150,000 miles. It's got what they call delayed engagement. You'll put it in gear, and you can count to 2 before it finally starts to do anything. Or you'll start to have shift flares. And what that comes down to is they had the updated valve body. You'll go to Ford, get the new valve body, put it in, change your fluid, program it, and usually that takes care of most of those issues. And the other thing, and we can't preach that enough with any transmission, I know you guys will back me on this, and it's good tuning. I mean, in bone stock form, you can't really hurt these transmissions other than a failing valve body or something mechanically not right inside the transmission. But as far as preventative maintenance, anything past a stock truck, good tuning, and, you know, make sure that the fluid and filter and everything is serviced properly, and they're about as good as you can get in stock form as far as I'm concerned.
Do these have an external spin-on filter?
No, they do not. They have an in-pan filter. And we still haven't reached that that level of serviceability yet, but maybe someday. But they do. I personally recommend. I mean, I know people don't ever pay attention to their transmissions or care until they're out, but I do recommend every 50,000 miles changing the fluid and filters and using the factory spec Mercon synthetic fluid that they recommend.
Oh, that was literally my next question.
If you go throw some crappy auto store, farm store ATF in there, you're going to be in for a rude awakening on a cold day when you start that up and try to drive somewhere. It's just not going to be happy.
What do you mean, man? I just spent $50,000 on the truck. Let me cut a corner on fluid. Come on.
I had a guy call me today.
That's like the guy who never serviced it for 120,000 miles
exactly.
and wonders why he needs a transmission.
Yeah. Well, so I had a guy today call me and ask, like, hey, I'm at O'Reilly's. Do I really need to buy the most expensive synthetic automatic transmission fluid, or can I buy the cheapest synthetic automatic transmission fluid? And I'm like, are you asking me if the cheapest is as good as the most expensive?
Yep.
And like, he just stopped. He's like, I'll call you back. I'm like, yeah.
You run into those, man. I call them special breeds.
That's
like the guy when they had a lift pump onto a truck, and they're like, I'm going to delete the factory fuel filter. Well, you know, if it's a stock truck, you're driving a lot, maybe leave it on there and help, you know. I just thinking of both sides here, you know. I don't want to spend $40 on another stock filter. Well, then why'd you buy the truck?
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, I guess that's the thing on these. So you said every 50,000 doing, like, draining the fluid, changing the filters, putting new fluid in. Do you actually suggest, like, going and doing the trans flush, or just a drain and replace?
No. Personally, I would do a drain, filter swap, and refill, and leave it at that. Now, one thing I will say, just from experience and seeing different brands, The Motorcraft transmission filter, the media inside that pan filter is heads and tails better than any aftermarket one I've seen to date. That doesn't mean there isn't one out there, but it means I haven't seen it. It may be $5 more than the one you get at the parts store, but in all reality, that's something that you're already going to be, going in deep of changing your transmission fluid and filter, $5 extra or whatever to get a genuine OE Motorcraft filter. And honestly, if you're not buying the Motorcraft spec, Mercon trans fluid, the stuff you're going to get that surpasses that grade is going to be more expensive anyway.
Right.
So the cheapest oil I would put in it at that point is the Mercon transmission fluid that they spec out. So, it's kind of at that point. Realistically, I know it sounds cliche, but the OEM stuff in that regards is pretty hard to beat. And price wise, anything you're going to get cheaper is going to be worse. And anything else that's actually adequate or better is probably going to cost more. So, that goes for about with anything, but that's where one thing I wouldn't skimp on.
Well, it's funny when you hear guys in the aftermarket world recommending the factory spec stuff, right? Because literally all of our businesses are built off of the factory didn't do it right. We can do it better.
Yeah, better than factory.
But yeah, no, I like that.
Unfortunately, most parts houses are built on, let's see if we can sell it cheaper than factory and take their business, which generally means getting parts.
O'Reilly's.
Auto parts. We should get them as a sponsor on the show.
I love it.
Paul.
Yeah. I'm sure they would love to hear us bash on them. Is that 4-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two-door or four-door? I need oil. What the fuck does that matter?
Okay, so these transmissions, they're stout in their stock form, and in their built form, they're damn near indestructible, at least on what we've seen so far. Do you think in the future we'll start seeing like guys swapping 6R140s into other platforms? Like, will this be a good swap, or is there a lot of electronics that require it to stay in the Ford platform?
Well, so here's what we're going to look at. We already have, and it's been done before. The 6.7 brought into a standalone ECM, and that's cool because that allows us to move that engine from platform to platform, especially in competition stuff where we want to put them in a pulling truck or something of that nature. Now, I actually have a 6.7 pulling truck that has a 6R140 in it. And currently, because of the limitations of the factory TCM and what it allows me to do, you have issues with shifting. These transmissions really want to protect themselves, and they're good at it. So, when you want to, go down the track and hold the same gear for, 16, 18 seconds straight at wide open throttle, they like to say, no, it's time to shift, something's not right. So anyway, we've come down to where we manually control them. That's great for a pulling truck, and it does work. I mean, they will hold the gear, and they are, at this point, doing well. But we are trying to, and I've been back and forth on the phone with a couple companies. What we are trying to do is get a program written and get a base calibration set up so we can offer a standalone TCM, through somebody like PCS. So that way it could be put behind other platforms, and or it could be put behind a 6.7 standalone in some other vehicle. If somebody wants to retrofit it into an antique truck or put it in a car or just anything cool like that, I think the 6R140 would be that awesome transmission that somebody could even find a nice used one that's stock and throw it in there and have fun and not have to go buy something outrageously expensive. As long as we can get the controller set up and dialed in, it would be pretty cool to offer a 6-speed automatic for those types of things, and then as well as maybe retrofitting them behind some of the older diesels. Because they're a pretty nice shifting, very stout transmission, and there's a lot of positives to go along with that.
Sure. I mean, at the top of the show, we were talking about a Built 48 and like how when you build them, they're awesome and they do great in competition and guys put them behind Duramaxes to drag race and shit like this. And, but they suck to daily drive. Like that was the big complaint. That's actually the guy from Facebook. He called in like, did you know this? Like, did you know that these Built transmissions fucking suck every day in your truck? Like, it's awful. What I've been impressed by is the 6R140s I've gotten to drive. They're so smooth shifting.
I'm sold on that, for sure.
And to hear that they hold the power and to hear that they have more capacity than what we've been pushing them to is really, really exciting for me because I am used to Built transmissions feeling like Built transmissions. There's that certain amount of like experience we have with them where we know you're going to feel every gear. And they get worse as you go to higher horsepowers. How are these? Like when you're in those higher horsepowers, are they still that smooth on the road?
It depends on once again, that all comes down to the tuning. We can make a comp trans, via a factory TCM tune, shift like factory, very, very similar. But when you're dealing with higher horsepower, especially when you get into that, 800-900 horse range, they're going to have to shift firm, especially at wide open throttle.
Right.
The good thing about the 6.7 TCM is it does allow us to map a lot of the parameters as far as your oncoming pressures, slip times. They have so many tables in there to where if you spend enough time with them, you can make them shift very good at mild throttle inputs, and you can make them shift very, very aggressive at high throttle inputs. And that's one of the cool things that you don't get with, especially, the older 48s or something like that, where, it's either set on kill or it's set on tow, and you're just stuck with whatever you wanted to live with. And even so with some of the 5Rs and stuff, when we were doing the old pump mods and manually jumping the pressure up, you actually had to turn the pressure down in the programming so it would shift smooth. And, believe it or not, we don't do any manual pressure increases in the valve body in a 6R.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I mean, none. Absolutely. Which is pretty much a testament to the ability of the engineers from the factory and how far they've came in the fluid flow and the control systems of these automatic transmissions versus the older models. I mean, there is very little. The valve body is so much smaller and so much less complex than even the previous model 5R110. The pump itself has less moving parts in it, and everything in that transmission is roller bearing, even the pump.
No,
really?
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's impressive. They've came a long ways in transmission design, because an E4OD, we're talking in the 80s, a 4R100 in the 90s, and a 5R110. They're all, to an extent, built off the same platform, just evolved and evolved and evolved. I mean, and you can take an input shaft out of an E4OD or a 4R100 and a 5R110, and they're all identical.
Right.
They're all very similar. A 6R140 is a totally new evolution of automatic transmissions. And, like its little brother, the 6R80, which is in the Mustangs. I don't know if anybody's heard about what those do.
They're bad motherfuckers.
There's cars in the nines on a stock transmission. I mean, it's ridiculous what they hold.
A buddy of mine has one of the newer Mustangs, a built motor, twin turbo setup, and we were talking about that. He bought the car built, and we were talking about the trans, and he goes, "Yeah, we did a couple little things, but the stock transmissions, they'll hold 9s, 10s all day long. Like they are actually robust at that power level, and it's crazy to think. So those transmissions are little brother, big brother scenario, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I mean it's the thing that whatever they were doing when they were designing these, they were thinking a little bit further ahead, not looking back at the old design saying, what can we use from this to put it in our new transmission? I mean, they literally share nothing, and which is nice. They've pretty much improved on just about every single area of the transmission, in my opinion, versus the previous models, and it's surprising for what they're able to do in factory form. It just means in modified form they do that much better.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Morgan, I definitely appreciate you taking out some time to talk to our listeners today about the 6R140 and share all of your knowledge about it. Is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to?
Oh, boy. That's a good one.
Or if somebody wanted to get in contact with you to learn more about a 6R140, how could they reach you?
I would say if anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to give us a call here at Midwest Diesel and Auto. We have guys on the phones all the time. We keep these transmissions in stock, and if anybody has a question about their truck, what they want to do with it, their 6R140, what it can handle, feel free to give us a call. I mean, that's what we do. We'd be glad to help anybody out who's got a question or anything further than that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Guys, this has been Paul Wilson.
And this is Chris Hemke.
Thanks for listening.
Calibrated Power Solutions, the leading North American developer of clean diesel power and home of DuramaxTuner.com, is the proud sponsor of the Diesel Performance Podcast. Calibrated Power develops emissions-equipped calibrations for a wide variety of diesel powertrains, including the Duramax, Cummins, Jeep, John Deere, and many more. For more information and the best customer service in the industry, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920. That's 815-568-7920. If you'd like to contact the Diesel Performance Podcast, send us a message through Facebook or email Paul at DuramaxTuner.com or Chris at CEHMKE at DuramaxTuner.com. You could also reach him by phone. Chris's extension is 2121, Paul's is 2122.
They start flaring and doing funky stuff and squealing and chirping and squawking, and that's if you hear that, you're already too late.
Oh, no.